had? What do you say you had other than festival? Than not having festival? No, no, no. I don't like that with jerk chicken. Can I just get the bird? Oh God. So that's been weighing down on me for like forever because them not taking me seriously from ever since made me believe that this is just the role I have to play in my life. And as far as I'm concerned, is that they're never going to take me seriously no matter how much I try to somehow prove myself or try to, um, no matter how much I try to, uh, no matter how much I show myself to be um, a serious person or a serious teacher, a serious spiritual teacher. Even saying that sounds weird to me because I feel like I'm playing myself. It's like I have a lot of awesome information to say to share with the world, but I don't believe that I'm supposed to be doing it because I don't trust myself. I don't see myself as a teacher because my family and nobody in my life took me seriously that way. Number one, they didn't even know that about me. And it's a really painful state to be in. And even when I say to them, it doesn't really don't it doesn't shake them. They're not interested in in changing because it's really all about whenever you have if you're in a family where you're in a family where where you're the scapegoat. It's more about them seeing you as continuously as the scapegoat. It's not about them changing. They will never. They're not interested in changing because for them to change is for them to somehow acknowledge that they were wrong about you, and also number two is for them to. It means that they're gonna have to make changes, and they have to start respecting you, and it means that they're gonna have to become vulnerable in some ways, and they don't want that. And if they change, it's also about if they're changing. If they have to change, it means that they don't get to have you as that person to put down anymore. They don't get to fix you up because it's all about them feeling better about themselves. And they point to you and they all point to you as that person. They all point to you as the scapegoat. They all see you as that. And the more they see you as that, the more other people see you as that. And if your parents have made you the scapegoat of the family, then your siblings have made you the scapegoat of the family. And then, the neighbors have made you the scapegoat. And the friends come around and your friends come around, it's the same thing. And far relatives come around, the same thing. Because whenever people see one person being picked on, okay, when they see one person being bullied, because all people have this need to feel better about themselves. All people suffer from the same kind of pathology of having of being a part of this world and being told that they have to live up to a certain standard and they have to be productive and they have to be this and they have to be that. And so if they measure themselves against that standard and they fall short, then they have, and we all have this side of ourselves that feels like we fall short and never really feels like we quite measure up. And so that part of ourselves, needs, and everybody has this part of themselves, and this is why the scapegoat and being the scapegoat is continuously um, a thing. because everybody has a part of themselves. So they need, whenever they come in a setting where one person is being picked on, they join forces with the majority, because the scapegoat is the minority. The scapegoat is the person that nobody wants to take the side of. Because if they take the side of the scapegoat, they become a scapegoat too, And so, and the scapegoat is always, for the most part, is always this eccentric type who does not conform easily to the family, and or does not fit the family's, um I can't find the word, the archetype of what the family decide is what they're about, their standards, their moral standings, their their ethics and their rules and their this and their that. And there's always this one child and this one sibling who may not conform. Okay, and so when, because people have this majority consciousness and this group think consciousness, they're afraid to stand out. They're afraid to stand out in a negative way, in the negative light of everybody seeing them in a negative way. And so what happens is that, um, they come around, and when they see the scapegoat in the family, they too start to pick, as in bullying, and pick on and try to fix up and blame and shame and criticize and ridicule. And these are all the things that the scapegoats have to deal with. And everybody come around that person and start doing the same thing. Because when they do the same thing, it takes the attention off of them. It takes the negative attention off of them. And it also gets them to convince themselves and the other people around that they are that they are that they are the opposite of what the scapegoat represents, which is what the majority of the people, which they all want to be. Is that if they want to be productive and they want to be the standard and they want to be seen as good in some way and moral, and maybe the scapegoat don't want to conform to all that bullshit for whatever reason. Um, when everybody sees the scapegoat, they don't want to go through what the scapegoat's going through, but at the same time, they have this need to prove themselves to be worthy of fitting in with the majority, with the in crowd, with the rest of the family, whatever group there might be. And so that scapegoat is continuously suffers for that, and that's what I've had to deal with in my life, in my family. It's like, I'm not somebody that conforms easily. And it would have seemed that way because when I was growing up, I was very quiet. I didn't rebel against pretty much anything because I was so deeply afraid of my father. And so even though I was rebelling quietly. But at the same time, my parents knew somewhere in their minds that I was a different type. I was the black sheep, and so the black sheep is usually the same thing. End up being the scapegoat, right? That's crazy. So I was the black sheep and the scapegoat, and what was I saying just now about it? Just now, these are the issues I'm having. Memory problems too. So if the parents have made you the scapegoat, the siblings follow suit because they more than anybody else need to be connected to the parents. They need to be in favor, get approval, and the positive attention, and get in the good graces of the parents. So they might side with the parents. And even if they don't side with the parents in childhood, at some point they end up siding with the parent later on, because that need to connect with the parents, that need to be close with the parent and get favor from the parent never goes away ever. And so and so at some point they side with the parent, and so the scapegoat continues to suffer in that way, because the parent the children, the other siblings side with the parents, and now everybody's against that scapegoat, and that's painful. You know, 100% of the time, that's gonna be like the most painful thing when you're already the scapegoat and you feel like nobody's on your side. You feel like that makes you feel like the whole world and the whole universe is against you, and God is against you, because our emotional system register the role that our parents play as a God role, right? And so when you come into a life and you feel like the parent or both parents are against you because you're the scapegoat or the problem child sometimes, and sometimes the golden child. Sometimes these can all be all the same person. That's the thing. So in families where there's like an only child or only two children, that often happens where the scapegoat, the problem child, and the golden child are all in the same body. And that's why a lot of times these only children, people, you find that they're the only child. They're usually really fucked up and quite narcissistic, right? And people just write it off as, oh, it's just because they're the only child, they're selfish. That's this, but it's because of the narcissistic home dynamic, which a lot of people believe is rare. Just like they think sociopathy is rare, and I believe narcissism and narcissists are um, narcissists and narcissism and sociopathy is in fact the human condition, is the way of the human being. So pretty much every home is narcissistic to some degree. You can't escape it. That's the thing. But I digress. I forgot what I was saying before I digress. Okay, but let me just go back to one of the points is they're not interested in changing. They're not interested in ever seeing you, taking you seriously when you're the scapegoat. It's all about making sure you maintain that position. You continuously play that role. Because what they're going to come around and do is try to fix you up and try to criticize you and tell you it's constructive criticism. But really, all it is it's they don't want you to change. They want you to continuously be what they deem to be like degenerate or non-productive or um, weird, eccentric, anything that they see as not standard, as unethical or whatever you shouldn't be. They tell the story that they want you to change and they want you to do better, but they don't. They do not. They want you to continuously be that person. They want you to continuously be the degenerate of the family because they want you to be the scapegoat of the family. They want you to be they don't see that non-conformist, but you are a non-conformist. They want you to be, they want you to continue to be the immoral, whatever is making you different, that they see as not good, that they think you should improve and not be, is a lie. They want you to continuously be that person because the way that these homes are set up, which is the average human home on earth, the narcissistic home, is that these people, they need they need a scapegoat. They need somebody to continuously fix up so they could take the heat out of their own back, so they could take the attention off of them. They need somebody they could continuously blame to take the attention off of them, to take away the blame from themselves. They need somebody to see as non-productive or not progressive or not not ambitious, because they need you to be that person so they could feel like they're the opposite. They could feel like they're ambitious and they're all these good things and all these moral, ethical things that human beings are supposed to be. Don't make the mistake to think that the ever that you know that if you are the person in the family that's always being blamed and being criticized and being fixed up, that they see you as this project. You're their little project that they fix, that they use to, you have they use you to they need to fix you up so they could, feel like they don't need fixing up. Okay, you get what I'm trying to say. It's just projection and deflection, and that's just how the narcissistic home works. It sucks. Well, that was a good rant. That was a good rant, a good release. I think this is helping me. I think the universe is probably telling me to do this for a while now, but I was too afraid. I couldn't keep the camera going, to keep it rolling and stuff. And right now, I feel this fright coming up, this kind of a nudging, weak feeling in my stomach, in my chest. It feels like it's crying. It makes me want to cry. Don't run away from the tears. Don't run away from the tears. Don't run away from the tears. Be with it. Be with it. Be with it. No matter what, be with it. No matter what, be with it. Be with it. Breathe with it. Breathe with it. Breathe with it.
Anything you see going on your block, things that you don't like, some elected official has helped make that decision, and you elected those officials. You got to vote the right people in.
This maniacal grin, like the third eye on his forehead, and I'm like, oh man, that's show. that doesn't look good, but it's actually like when you watch, when you watch what you do, it's great stuff, man. It's great. But that first impression, this almost didn't happen. But everybody who has talked to you, everybody who watches your show, I think they get a very different impression in how you paint it. And for me, it's a wonderful thing because nobody understands that better than I do, right? Like the governor and the spirit can paint against me endlessly for 6 months when I came forward in June of 2013. I know we're off topic here. I'll get back to it.
Fine. There's no such thing as off topic. We can do it. We can talk about whatever.
Great. Okay, so for those people, first off, who have no idea who the hell I am, I'm the guy who's behind the revelations of global mass surveillance in 2013. I worked for the CIA. I worked for the NSA as a contractor at the NSA, as staff officer at the CIA. I was undercover working at embassies. And I talk about the difference between this and a book and a contractor and government official and how it's all sort of lost its meaning. But I saw something wrong. And I saw basically the government was violating the law. And what I believe to be the Constitution of the United States and more broadly human rights for everyone in the United States and around the world. There were domestic surveillance programs, there were mass surveillance programs that worked internationally. Basically everything that they could monitor, they were monitoring. And this is actually like people go, well, isn't that obvious? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? And this is weird, but the answer actually is no. Under the framework of our Constitution, the government is only supposed to be monitoring people that it has an individualized, particularized suspicion of wrongdoing for, right? We think about this in investigative things, right? Like all those TV shows where they're like, go and get a warrant. The reason they had to do that, we fought a revolution over this, a couple hundred years back, is the idea that when we had kings, when we had governments of absolute power, they could simply go in your home and go, is this guy a pot smoker, get his diary, whatever it is. And just like if you find evidence of crime, you march them off to prison and it's all good. You found evidence, they're a criminal. Or you didn't find evidence, well, no harm, no foul. You're just doing what government does. We were trying to build a better system where yes, the government has extraordinary capabilities, but it only uses them where they're necessary, right? Where they're proportionate to the threat that is presented by this person. We shouldn't be afraid of the person who's got like a baggie of weed in their dresser or something like that. That is not a threat to national security. That's not a threat to public safety. But what happened in the wake of 9/11 was a whole bunch of government officials got together behind closed doors, and this was actually led, interestingly enough, by the Vice President of the United States, Cheney. Everybody remembers that name, hopefully. I can look that name up, Dick Cheney, and his personal attorney, sort of the Giuliani of Dick Cheney, a guy named David Addington. And this lawyer, David Addington, wrote a secret legal interpretation that no one else was allowed to see. It was kept in the vice president's safe at the White House. They weren't giving this, even when they told people, and it was just a couple people in Congress. Nancy Pelosi was one of them, and a couple of these other folks. When they talked to the heads of the agency, the NSA and the CIA and the FBI and all this stuff, they told them, the White House and the Office of Legal Counsel and the president's attorneys, all of these guys had decided this would be legal to do. But we can't tell you why. We can't show you the legal authorization for it. You just got to take our word for it. And so they did this, and this became a mass surveillance program called Stellar Wind, which they said was supposed to monitor the phone calls and internet communications, emails, and things like that of everybody in the United States and around the world who they could get access to for links to Al Qaeda. Because if you remember in the wake of the September 11th attacks, they were saying, we thought there could be sleeper cells of Al Qaeda that were just, peppered all throughout the country. They were going to spring up at anyone. And of course, like weapons of mass destruction, it just didn't exist. It was all out there.
Close this window.
But on that basis, they started doing this in secret. It was completely unconstitutional. It was completely illegal, even under the very loose requirements of the Patriot Act. But they did it for so long that they got comfortable with it. And they thought, this is a really powerful capability. What if we started using this for stuff that was other than terrorism? Because it wasn't finding any terrorists, because there weren't any terrorists in this context that were looking for them. And the ones who, where there were terrorists, the program wasn't effective because these were guys in Pakistan that weren't using, email and phone calls. They were getting on a, moped with the cousin who's a courier, who's bringing a letter to this guy, who owns the food stand or whatever. But bit by bit over time, this grew and grew and grew. And there were scandals. And if you want to drill down on these later, I'll go into them. But what happened was step by step by step, our constitutional rights were changed. And we weren't allowed to know it. We were never granted a vote. And even the many members of Congress, 135 in the United States, they were prohibited from knowing this. And instead, they told only a few select people. In the original case, there were only 8 members of Congress, called the Gang who knew about this. Then there were the people on the intelligence committees, both in the Senate and the House, who were told about this. But they were only told partially about it. They weren't told the full scope of it. And now that they had been told about it, because they had security clearances and things like that, they weren't allowed to tell anybody else, even if they objected to it. And we had one senator, Ron Wyden, and another one, I believe, Tom Udall was the name, who did object to this, who wanted something to happen, but because they couldn't tell anybody that was happening, they were sort of doing these weird Lassie barks to the press, where they were like, we have grave concerns about the way these programs are being carried out. But nobody knew what they were talking about. And so journalists were like, they've got concerns. What is that, Lassie? What are you trying to say? Timmy's well, but they were getting it wrong. They couldn't tell what was happening. And so what had happened was that we, the American people, had sort of lost our seat at the table of government. We were no longer partner with the government. We had simply become subject to them. And I think everybody who's in the world today, who is aware of what's going on, whether it's under this administration, the last administration, the one before that, right? They have seen a constant kind of shift where we, the public, have less say and less influence over the policy of government with each passing year. There's kind of a new class that's being created, government class, and then the public civil class that are held to different standards of behavior. And when we start talking about legal and whistleblowing, this becomes even more clear. And so what I did was I wanted to clarify that kind of Lassie bark, right? I just wanted everybody to know what was going on. I didn't want to say the government can't do this. I didn't want to say this is how you guys have to do it, because that's not for me to say. But I do believe that everybody in the United States and the world who are having their rights violated by government should have at least an understanding of how that is happening. Authorities, sort of the policies and programs that are enabling that, are so that they can protest them, so that they can cast a vote about them, so that they can say, you know what, you guys say this is okay, but I disagree. This is not okay. I object, and I want things to change. And so I gathered evidence of what I believe to be criminal or unconstitutional activity on the part of government. And I gave this to journalists, right? Now, I gave this to journalists under a very strict condition here, which was that they publish no story in this archive of information simply because it was interesting, right? No clickbait, not anything just because they thought it would make news or would get them awards. They would only publish stories that they were willing to make an institutional judgment and stand behind. And this was 3 different newspapers. That it was in the public interest to know. And so then beyond that, there was additional, because if you could see sort of what I was doing here, what had happened, what had led us into this pitfall was that the system of checks and balances that's supposed to self-regulate our government had failed. The courts had abdicated their role in policing the executive and the Congress because terrorism was such a hot argument at the time. They were worried about being criticized and blamed if something went wrong and an attack did go through. And they didn't have access to the information that the programs were ineffective. So they were just taking the government's word for it. They didn't want to wade in. Congress, most of them didn't even know, right? And the ones who did know, it was the same thing. They were getting their pockets stuffed with money by the defense contractors that were getting rich for building these systems that were violating the rights of each of us. So they benefited by just saying nothing. And then the executive themselves, whether we're talking about Bush, right, whether we're talking about Obama, or whether we're talking about Trump now, all these guys were okay with the constantly growing surveillance state because they're the ones whose hands were on the lever at the time. They got to aim it. They got to use it. If you had a little search box in front of you, it would give you the email history and everybody in the United States, anybody you want. You could put their text messages. Anybody you want, anything you ever typed into that Google search box, it's the worst thing you ever typed into that search box. That lasts forever. Right? And they have a record of that. They can get that from Google. And so this was the whole thing. How do we correct that? So when we have somebody who wants to inform the public of something, and we'll get into the proper channels of these later, but you can't go through the institution to get these corrected because the institution knows it's wrong and is doing it anyway, right? That's the whole origin of the program, is they want to do something that they're not allowed to do. What do you do? Right. And so I didn't want to say I'm the president of secrets. I didn't want to just put this stuff on the internet. And I could have. I'm a technologist, right? I worked with the journalists, and then to create an adversarial step, right? Someone who would argue against what I believed, hopefully with the journalists, once they consulted the documents and basically authenticated them. Can we get the government to play that role? Right? And so before the journalists published any story, this is a controversial thing. People still criticize me for this, actually. They say I was too accommodating the government. Well, they could be right. Is that the journalists would go to the government and give them warning. Say, we're about to run this story about this secret program that says you did X, Y, and Z bad thing. One, is that right? And the government always go, oh, no comment. Right? Two, is this going to cause harm? Is anybody going to get hurt? Is this program effective? Right? Is there something Snowden doesn't understand? Does this guy just not get it? Right? Are these documents fake? Whatever you want. Say we shouldn't run this story. And in every case, I'm aware of that process was followed. And that's why, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who don't like me, who criticize me, who go, this was unsafe, this caused harm to people or whatever. We're in 2019 now. I came forward, and these stories won the Pulitzer Prize for Public Service Journalism. I started way back in June of 2013. We've had 6 years to show bodies. We've had 6 years to show harm. And you know as well as I do, the government's happy to leak claims when it's in their interest. Nobody has been hurt as a result of these disclosures because everyone who's involved in them was so careful. We wanted to maximize the public benefit while mitigating potential risks. And I think we did a pretty good job. But just to get back to the main thing, the original thing that got us off on that trail, when I came forward in June of 2013, I gave one interview to people who were in the room with the documents, Laura Fortress, Glenn Granville, Ewan McCaskill. And I said, well, this was about why we were constructing a system of turnkey people. And even if you trust that to our value, you never know whose hand is going to be on that key next. What I have to do is turn it. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. The only thing that's restraining these programs really is policy, more so than the law. Now, the president at any time can sign a napkin, and those policies change. Well, after that, I went 6 months without giving any interviews because I didn't want people to talk about me. I wanted to talk about what I actually meant. And the government, of course, was trying very hard to change the conversation, as they always do, to be about who is this guy? What have they done? Right? What's wrong with them? What are their problems? Who is this new guy? So they can controversialize the source of the story rather than having to confront the story itself. And that's why I said I really kind of appreciate your take on the media and everything like that, because when you don't tell your story, other people will tell it for you. They'll say so many things about you, and they'll have these misimpressions, like I did, because of something as stupid as the avatar that you were using on Twitter, where I think it's a certain kind of show with a certain kind of guy, and it's this crazy stuff. When I actually listen to you, when I actually look at the facts, right? And when I hear you just speak, I go, actually, this is a thoughtful guy. Actually, this is somebody who does care, who does want to look at these things deeply. And appearances and our first impressions can be very misleading.
I work hard on that. I try to mislead people. It's good. Works to my advantage.
You're doing a good job, man.
Thank you. I want to bring it back to when you first started with the NSA. You started as a contractor, right? What was your initial impression, and when did you know that things were really squirrely with the programs they were implementing?
So I'm not saying this to put you on the spot. I know you've been a busy guy. I know you haven't done. I think it shows recently. You come back from break, right? But have you read the book? Because it'll just help me.
Your book.
If you haven't got a chance to read it.
No, I have not read your book or got a copy of it.
Okay, well, I will send you a signed copy of it.
Beautiful.
And I hope you'll read it, and I hope you will enjoy it. But all right, so I had a really weird history in the intelligence community. I grew up in a federal family. In the shadow of Fort Meade, right? All these little suburban communities in Maryland where basically the entire industry of the state is the federal government of all these different agencies, and then all the subcontractors, all the defense industries that serve that government and really are kind of our war-making machine, our system of control for the country and the world broadly. All that stuff spreads in a couple 100-mile radius out of DC. My mother worked for the district courts, or rather the federal courts, and it's kind of funny because she still works there, and those are the courts that are trying to throw me in jail for the rest of my life now. My father worked for the Coast Guard, retired after 30 years. My grandfather was an admiral, and then worked for the FBI. And as far back as it goes, my family, my whole line of family, even generations back, was working for the government. So it was pretty ordinary, pretty expected for me to go into the same kind of work. Now, I started, I wasn't super successful in school because I felt, and this is the most arrogant thing in the world that anybody says, then from computers than I did from, biology class. And so I spent more and more time focusing on technology. Then I got mono. I dropped out of high school. And now it's like, all right, how do I make this up? I say drop out of high school, but I'm actually going to community college. Right? They call it concurrent enrollment. When I'm not taking the classes at high school, I'm going to community college instead. And I'm not doing that great there either. Like it's fine, I'm enjoying it, but school is school. I can't wait to be done.
You were bored.
And yeah, I think a lot of people have felt that. But I ran into somebody at the community college who ran their own home-based business, doing web design, and they could see I was kind of technical. And they went, "Hey, do you want to work for me?" And I was like, "Well, that sounds great." And so I started doing web design really, really early on. This is like, I don't know, probably 1998 vintage, during the big boom and then the collapse that followed. And the funny thing is, she worked, she was married to an NSA analyst, a linguist. And so she lived on Fort Meade, and she ran her business out of their home on Fort Meade. It's right up the street from the NSA. So before I'm even working there, I'm driving past this building all the time and trying to figure out, what the next step is going to be. And I enjoy this. It's a good thing for me. Like it works well. And I start getting trained and certified, all these little industry stamps you've got to get as a technologist to say, oh, you know this program or whatever. And just start climbing the ladder. But then 9/11 happens. And I'm on Fort Meade when 9/11 happens. I'm just going to work. And I tell this in the book in some detail. And I think it's very much worth reading for people who don't know this, because this is forgotten history.
How old were you at the time?
I was born in '83, so I was probably 18 years old. Yeah, I had just turned 18 a couple months before. And what people forget is who knew what was going on before anybody else on September 11th? The intelligence community, right? And what did they do? Right? Did they give out a public warning? Did they tell you guys to evacuate? Did they send you this, that, or that? No. Not for everybody, not for a long time. But at the NSA, then director Michael Hayden, he was a general, he later became director of the CIA, ordered the entire campus evacuated. Thousands, tens of thousands of people, actually, just said, go home, right? The CIA did the same thing. They were running on skeleton crews. At the moment, the country needed them more than they ever had, right? And I get a call, well, I hear a call that's from my boss's wife, her husband to her. He's calling from the NSA and saying, hey, I think Ed should leave for the day because I'm the only employee of this business besides her. Because I think they're going to close the base down. I'm like, this is crazy. We never close this down, right? We don't know what's happening. Then we start checking the news, which is through websites, right? Because we're doing all this stuff. And suddenly it's the big story everywhere. And nobody understands how big it is yet. Most of us are like, oh, it's going to mess with our workday. Oh, it's going to mess with our commute. But when I'm leaving, I hear car horns all over the place. It's the craziest thing because this is a military base, right? It's right outside the NSA. And I entered just this absolute state of pandemonium as I go past K9 Road, which is the road that travels right in front of the NSA's headquarters. And it's just a parking lot as far as you can see. They have military police out under the stoplights directing traffic because it's this massive evacuation. And I still have no idea what's happening. Like the story is still developing. But I will never forget that image. Why did these people have so much power and so much money and so much authority if at the moments we need them the most, they're the first ones in the country that are leaving their buildings. And later on, they said, and this is covered in a book, I believe. I think it's James Bamford, who interviewed that director of NSA and gave that order about what was happening. He was going, well, he called his wife and was asking where their kids were and everything like that. And then after that, he wanted to think about, well, where could these other planes that they knew were in the air that hadn't struck yet, where could they be headed? And this sort of shows how self-centric the intelligence community is. This is the DC metro area, right? They could hit the White House, they could hit Congress, they could hit the Supreme Court, right? And they go, oh, they're going to fly their planes into the CIA headquarters, or they're going to fly their planes into the NSA headquarters. And of course, it was never realistic that these. But on that basis, they were like, "Ooh, let's get our bacon out of the pan." But now, I don't say this.
I'm sorry, but in the interest of what wasn't it possible that they could have attacked those places? I mean, they attacked the Pentagon. They knew that there was attacks.
Look, it's absolutely possible. They could have attacked your Denny's,
right?
But it's a question of risk assessment. If you have planes in the air, if you believe there's an ongoing terrorist attack that's happening in the United States right now, and if you have built history's greatest surveillance agencies, right, the most powerful intelligence forces in the history of the species, you are going to take those off the board, or at least the majority of their personnel off the board then, in a chance that you have no sort of grounds for substantiating that they could be targeting you to begin with, simply because they could? Well, somebody else will get hit with those. As you say, it's going to be the Pentagon, right? It's going to be the World Trade Center. It's going to be someone somewhere.
You didn't care
and
to
the more
ask.
minutes you're in front of that
Because
desk,
if you said that there's a bunch of different restaurants
even
there,
if it's somebody who doesn't
and
work
you
on
asked your friends
terrorism,
if
maybe
you
it's somebody
didn't
who
care to
only
find
works
out where exactly it was.
in North
If it was
Korea.
me. Nobody who cares. It's below me.
Stop what
Nobody
you're
cares
doing.
to respect me.
Look
and
at
my
financial
freedom.
transactions related to who purchased
What I
these plane
want.
tickets. Do this. You just go full spectrum and go anything you can do right now. If the building gets hit, we get hit. That's what we signed up for. Nobody wants that, right? That's not the desired outcome. But if they had asked the staff to do that, they
I'm not good at listening. I'm not a good listener. Yeah. I'm really not. If you would have made sure you go to the right place. You weren't, you already were reluctant. I didn't know why you allowed you to move through with it. You know, I have to start respecting myself. You know, when people don't really respect you, to just let them be. And don't ask them for shit. Which I never really asked you for anything to begin with. You offered to give me something yesterday. Yeah, and that was that. And then today,
She welcomed Vaugh's mom with open arms when we all know that she sat up on television like a softer, quote unquote, hair texture, straighter hair texture in school, especially. Everyone apparently has straight hair. So, you know, the way Brianna said she desperately needed to get it done rubbed me the wrong way, but it could have just been anything. Meanwhile, in South Dakota, Adam didn't show up to his weekly lunch with his daughter Aubrey, and Chelsea actually seemed excited about it. She just laughed at how Adam overslept for an 11 and doesn't really ask. C is planning to execute Covert Cole's plan to isolate Aubrey from the Lynns. She tells Heather Grace that she gets the quote unquote vibe that Aubrey doesn't want to spend time with the Lynns anymore, which is funny because just last week, totally coincidentally, right, her husband, Cole, is the one who basically said that he wanted to cut the Lynns out of Aubrey's life. He said, and I quote, "I don't even know why they're still around." And then after he said that, in the same episode last week, Chelsea told us that she's going to go talk to her lawyers about altering the visitation schedule. What part of that has anything to do with Aubrey? Like, I'm genuinely asking. She does admit that Adam goes to see Aubrey for lunch, even if it is not every week. So it's not like Aubrey doesn't know who her dad is or anything like that. She does spend at least some time with him, you know, like he's trash, but she knows him and she loves him. And that's kind of it at the end of the day. Then Chelsea tells Heather Grace that Adam has been ghosting Aubrey. She's like, you know, Aubrey sent Adam 3 more text messages. And the last one was like, "Are you getting these text messages?" And my heart cracked into 100 million pieces for Aubrey that, first of all, this is happening to her in her life. Second of all, that her mom is exposing it to the whole world. You know, her friends' parents are probably watching this. Her teachers are watching this. Her principal is watching this. Her softball coach is watching this. Her friends will be watching this in like 2 more years. She'll be watching it when the clip is up on YouTube. You know what I mean? All for what? You know, at the end of the day, for what? Meanwhile, in West Virginia, Leah is still not listening to the doctor's orders to have Allie use her wheelchair.
my lover. Show you things that you never heard.
Excuse me. Like, can you tell me about it that I have waiting on to tell me what those are? They hate me and I'm hurt. They hate me already and they haven't seen the half of me yet. They hate me and I'm hurt. I'm so hurt. Nothing interests me anymore.
Start obviously with the cleanser. Okay.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. If there was anyone who doesn't to live the kind of amazing life of adventure that he's lived, and I see a lot of that in you. I mean, we're going to talk about the book, but these pivots that you've made, the wanderlust that kind of infuses your life, and these moments
With myself and wake up the next morning, and then those trips are wonderful. Then I'm present. Then I'm singing a song. Then wisdom's landing on me. Then I'm hearing those angels and those butterflies of truth that land, and you go, bam, this is on me. I'm hearing it. Now, how do I personalize it, this truth? And ask myself and answer the question, why it's coming to me? How do I preserve it? Have the patience to preserve it? And then when I leave those trips, the big fun challenge is, how do I take that truth, the solitary truth, back into the masses, back into the stadium of life, and ride that bull, that rodeo of life, and remember, trust that this, read through all these and see if something, another central thing or column reveals itself. And that's where the title Green Lights came from. I noticed that there were successes in my life that I engineered. I noticed there were successes that I got just plain good fortune and landed in my lap. And like, you know, in shock, but I was immediately proud of it because I was like, Mom was right. She was right. It was time for me to swim.
Yeah, there's so many lessons in that. It's an extreme example of something that I think has been eroded in our culture in this time of, you know, participation trophies, where, you know, we're coddling our kids to such an extent that we're depriving them of, you know, some of those rough and tumble moments where they get their knees skinned so that they can learn these lessons. You know, I don't know about the extreme of your examples. It wasn't the offense that offended him. It was you lying about it. Like, as long as you were honest with him and you got away with it, it was almost an attaboy from him.
In a way. And that was part of the initiation of manhood. He wouldn't let us know that, what you just said, but that is what he was looking for. So there's a story in there about me stealing a pizza one night with a buddy of mine, Bud Junker. And I got home, my dad's on night and everything's yes. And I wanted to go away, and I haven't been perfect, but for what I've screwed up on, hopefully I've gone and apologized and made amends, and probably still have more to make that I don't know. But I'm trying to make choices where I'm teeing myself up for tomorrow morning at the very basic level. Here's a basic green light. Put coffee in your coffee filter the night before. So when you get up tomorrow morning, groggy, all you gotta do is push the thing in the button. And once we do, how do we get relative with it?
Is that
still confusing?
No, I got it. I mean, it reminds me of the serenity prayer, which is sort of,
very much,
you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Like, it kind of
come to that, and you were going to go, people, please. You wouldn't be, if you were overly impressed with me, you wouldn't be involved in.
And I started seeing that a lot more violence. You know, people started getting their girlfriends pregnant. They didn't have money to support those kids. Expensive work without any breaks. And yeah, it worked out.
It developed that neuroplasticity in your favor, ultimately. You were always a reader, though, right?
I loved books. So I would, you know, I would hide in the Tower Books section in the evenings, and I would read everything about fitness, psychology, anything I could. I've always devoured information. My favorite book when I was a kid was the Encyclopedia or the Guinness Book of World Records. So I would, like, when I was a little kid, I'd walk around the Aspen Center for Physics, and I would tell anyone. I didn't even ask them if they wanted to hear about, like, what's the world's smallest eutherian mammal. You know, like, it could tell you all these facts that were kind of meaningless at the time, but I've always been fascinated by the inventory of different animals on the planet and their different behaviors. And so, yeah, voracious reader, and still now. Yeah, I love information.
Well, as a neuroscientist, I mean, you're your own patient. I mean, the fact that you were able to, you know, turn your life around in such a dramatic fashion and do it essentially through sheer will and, you know, setting up practices that would fuel you in that right direction, and then being available when those mentors showed up from the you know, the early therapist. It sounds like that guy almost saved your life.
He absolutely saved my life. Yeah. He gave me the book. And you know, when are they going to open up all businesses? Did I touch that door handle? Does it matter? You know, Who are the experts? Are there any experts? You know, there are a lot of questions, whereas normally we can just move through life without having to do all that analysis. So if it's a simple example, like trying to learn a new language or a new motor skill or a new way of conceptualizing something, maybe somebody's in a therapeutic process and they're trying to work through a trauma or something like that, duration, path, and outcome is built into the networks of the brain. We can do that very easily, so the dopamine system is tethered to those states of focus, and it's what Mother Nature designed so that the neuroplasticity would occur and you would want to continue those behaviors again in the future. That deer needs to know and remember and create a memory, not just of where that stream is, but the process of, oh, when I feel that
What's up, Melissa?
Or have been unable to respond to.
Really?
Yeah.
And smoking it or eating it or both?
Both.
Jamie is with you with the eating. He's got some weird genetic disorder that doesn't work with him.
No.
Like edible, he can take 1,000 edibles and just hang around with people.
Yeah, but that's a thing. Like people are immune. Some people are immune to THC. It's not.
Some people get withdrawals too. You know, I've talked to people that get actual physical withdrawals from marijuana, and I used to be really skeptical about that. But these are people that are actually doses. If you make drugs legal across the board, the one thing that you do that's good is you stop all the flow of money into illegal drug sales.
Right.
So all the people that are selling drug, or most of it is, all the cartel money, all that stuff goes away. Because the cartels are making billions and billions of dollars selling to the United States and other countries they can sell to. And they're doing it because it's illegal. Because it's a business they can capitalize on that American businesses are not capitalizing on.
And violence goes down too, I'm assuming, right?
Well, they have
related
to.
to crime.
There's a correlation. I mean, if you go back to what happened in the United States during Prohibition, what it did is pop up organized crime. It propped up organized crime in a pretty spectacular way. And it was because there was a massive amount of money to be made selling alcohol. The desire for alcohol didn't go away. The legality of it went away.
Right.
So illegal sales went through the roof, and the people that were selling it were criminals.
I just think it's part of the human spirit, that if you say you can't have something, we'll just, there's the old Arabic proverb, that which is prohibited is always wanted.
Yeah,
and whatever you kind of like, you just drive it underground if you try to ban it. It's the whole spirit of punk rock, of like ending the system, and that just lies in almost every human heart. We actually see that with our books, for example. A lot of books are actually like transmitted on these Telegram groups in Arabic. It's like that Sam Harris writes, Richard Dawkins. These kinds of ideas that are really super censored in the Middle East. So that's kind of the gap that we're trying to plug right now. It's that since books are not available in that language, I think there's this crazy statistic. More books are translated between English and Spanish in 1 year than English and Arabic in 1,000 years.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy.
That is kind of crazy. So the exposure to those ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And the only other option is get these people to learn English, which is far more difficult task.
Of course. And your average person living in Syrian refugee camps isn't going to learn that quickly.
Right.
You got to meet people where they are, right? So I think the statistic when we first started, 10% of English Wikipedia was actually in Arabic, which means that every time, like for example, let's say you're like, oh Jamie, go Google this, right? And you expect an answer. It's just at the tip of our fingertips. It's so baked into modern life now. We don't even like think twice about it. But imagine if like you live in, I don't know, say Saudi Arabia, and like, okay, let's just Google it. 10 out of every 10 times, one time there's no answer because the page doesn't exist, or it just the word feminism doesn't exist in Arabic, so you can't look it up. Or secularism doesn't exist. It's how do you expect people to kind of break? And it's not, we're not saying like this is a top-down thing, like you have to read this. It's that I just want to live in a world where being ignorant is a choice for everyone, because it's a choice for us. Like let's say like right now you're like dumb and just like basically you spend your nights watching The Bachelor or like whatever it is. It's like
I know some people.
I do too. But I know I'm judging, but I know.
Oh, listen. They also are into interesting things, but I know some people do consume mindless nonsense. My friend Cam,
but exclusively.
He does. I'm calling you out.
You shaming him?
Yeah, you watch that shit. Bro.
Which a female one, Bachelorette.
He watches both of them.
Oh God. I only know that's still going on because I'm at the checkout line of the supermarket. I'm like, oh, why is that there? Like,
it's so strange that people are even interested in that.
I know.
It's a weird thing. Very weird thing. Yes, that ignorance would be a choice, would be nice.
Right.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that these parts of the world, one of the problems of getting them to shift their perception of the world is that they're not exposed to all the great works. They're not exposed to the
different ideas
and different debates.
And they have a monoculture. So monoculture is society is. They have religions, they have ways of life that are just so deeply entrenched, right? And then
Okay, so here I go again. I'm so deeply hurt by what just happened. Why? Because it just seems like it hits me. It doesn't take me seriously. It makes it hard for me to break out and show my higher self to them. It should become an opportunity to, because when I'm trying to be their friends and I'm trying to be nice, it makes me hold myself back because I don't want, because of the assumption that being too smart or too wise is going to rub them the wrong way. So it's a good thing. I know it's good as a dark side. Okay, so now I'm gonna do some inner child work, and it might cause me to be fidgeting around. It might cause me to end up being like weird, like acting up. First, there's this feeling I get because that is related to my voice and not being able to find my words, just stiffness in my chest. It's telling me that, what's it telling me? That I'm an idiot. It's telling me I'm an idiot. I'll never be able to do this work, you know. Who the hell do I think I am? These are the things that are coming up. It's subconscious is what I'm saying. Okay, so something just happened where this brother of mine brought me food that I asked him to get from a certain place, which he offered it to me to get me this meal yesterday, but I said at the time I didn't want to do it because I wasn't hungry and I didn't have an appetite. Later on in the night, I asked him, and he said he can't go at that time, which it's okay because I mean, I don't. Maybe I'd be mad too if I were him. But then today, I mean, he was really annoyed anyway. He was annoyed with me. He's just annoyed with me. He's just, I don't really think he likes me deep down. Most people in my family don't like me. Well, maybe not most people now yet, but many of them. And I'm having a falling out with pretty much everybody because, I'm the scapegoat and I don't see life like they see life. I don't conform to norms. because as far as I'm concerned, these norms is what is messing people up and is messing up the world. But if you conform to these norms and you believe that these norms are good and are right, then not only are they good and they're, you can't go against them because you suffer from the same pathology that created these norms. Meaning, you know, for example, it's like, you know, there's these norms and these morals, you know, there's this idea that you're supposed to come back and take care of your parents because they took care of you. I don't believe in that. I believe you could take care of your parents because if you have the means and you're there, you take care of them because you can afford it. And you take care of them because you care about them genuinely. But not they brought you into this world and take care of you. I do not conform to that because you don't owe your parents anything for bringing you in this world. They brought you in this world really for themselves. And they brought you into this world to, on their own accord. You had no say in it as far as you know, right? And so what you come in this life with your own, thank you, with your own life purpose and your own mission and your own path. And if taking care of your parents is getting in the way of that, you have to find a way to get out of that situation. Maybe you could do what you need to do to help them as much as you can, if you can, and if you have a desire to. But you should not be holding yourself back to take care of parents. So I don't conform to that kind of stuff because it gets in the way of the progress of the universe at large. Because somebody like me, I came here to do work for the universe. Okay, I came here to do work for Earth. And there's certain things that's getting in my way. Most of it is the trauma from my childhood. Most of it is me not being able to just express myself at the highest level in front of everyone that I come across, especially my family. And that's getting in my way. So whatever is getting in your way, you have to find a way to get yourself in a better situation so you are living squarely in your space of living your life's purpose, your life's mission, what you came on earth to do. So, you know, but if you've conformed to the idea that people came on earth to find success according to society's idea of success and to make it in life and to be a Christian and to do what your parents want you to do to make them proud, then you're going to be held back because you're on somebody else's path, which is a path that was deliberately created using psychology and mass mind control to get people in line, so people could not, so a certain power that be can have control over the masses. But most people have conformed to this way of life. And I decided that I don't believe in these things that they put, the doctrines and the norms and the morals that they put forward for us to live by. Because it's getting in the way of Earth's progress, because it's getting in the way of your progress and in the progress of the universe. Okay? And so that I'm just saying this to say that the people in my family, they don't like the way I am because I have a different way, the way I see the world and the way I see life. So when I say that so many of them don't like me, and pretty soon, if everything goes right, None of them will like me. There's a reason why I said that. It sounds like, you know, I'm just cynical, and it sounds that I'm playing the victim, or really you're the problem. Because it's true. It is true that most times when you're the common denominator that everybody hates, oftentimes you are really an asshole. But there's some exceptions to the rule. There is cases in my case where you see that everybody's kind of asleep. Everybody's a sheep who is asleep and is conformed to an unnatural life. And you've decided that you're not going to conform to it. If everybody is conformed and they believe that their way of living and seeing the world is right, but it's not, it's actually unhealthy, but you have not conformed, then of course you're going to be the odd one out. Of course you're going to be the common denominator, because you're going to be a problem for them, because they are living by a system and being programmed by a machine that is programming them to believe that the way that they see life is the way life should be. And so because you have not conformed to that way of living, you know, you're gonna be a problem for them. And so something must be said about the different, the exceptions to the rule situation where you are the common denominator. And am I a problem? I am a problem. But I am not the perpetrator per se. I am not, you know, I'm kind of the victim in the situation. And I'm not playing victim. It's just the word that describes what you are when you're suffering in a situation where everybody around you is just plugged into a system that doesn't serve them, that they think is serving them. And it's all connected, because the whole governmental, hierarchical, social problems, issues, all connects to family issues, you see. You know, we live in a global setting that is being run by psychopaths and sociopaths. And so the system itself is set up to serve a psychopathic and a sociopathic agenda. So there's a lot of manipulation, a lot of deception, a lot of lies. And so that trickles down to the common human being. It causes the common human being to become a sociopath, because you are living by a system that is just here to trick you and to appeal to your traumas and to appeal to your psychosis that comes from the trauma. It's like they create a system that is going to inevitably, ultimately, cause a psychosis for everyone. But at the same time, it's normal. These things are normal, and they tell you that these things are natural and normal, and they tell you that this is how life is. This is just how life is. And so I'm trying to find the best way to explain how the system itself, the psychopaths at the top, cause everybody to become psychopaths at the bottom. But the best way I could explain it right now is that, you know, if they set up a system that tells you a bunch of lies, this is the thing. The lie is the truth, and the truth is a lie, and the top is the bottom, and the bottom, that's the whole thing. That's the way to explain this. I gotta come back whenever I lose my train of thought about this topic to this part of the video to remind me of why, a very simplified version of why a sociopathic system caused everybody to become sociopaths, is because they twist everything around. They twist everything around so the lies become the truth, and the top become the bottom, and the you know, the white becomes a black, the dark becomes a light. So with what we think is truth is not the truth. Is actually a bunch of lies being told to us. And so we've conformed to it. We've taken to it, whether we want to or not. Is that some of it appeals to our psychosis because we become the liars that they made us to be, just like them. And so when we tell our little lies and our little white lies, we tell them, and it's like a part of us know it's not the truth, but we don't really consciously know it's not the truth. So the whole sociopathic system, it appeals to us in a certain ways. In other ways, it doesn't appeal to us, where it's causing us suffering. And sometimes we see it and sometimes we don't see it. And either when we see it or not see it, we accept we accept these things as normal. Even though, back in the day, I used to explain it as, we're miserable in this life. Because it's things that's causing us pain, we accept them. And we love them sometimes, and we support the things that's causing us pain. And so when you are me and you go against all the bullshit, you become the common denominator, because everybody's plugged into that matrix. Everybody's plugged into the system to some degree. Some of them are not plugged into it as others, but for the most part, we are all plugged into it to some degree. But somebody like me who's plugged out for the most part, and I've always tried to walk to the beat of my own drum. If I turn this way and everybody's going that way, everybody's gonna have a problem with you, and they're gonna tell the story that something's wrong with you. Especially if some of these people are sociopaths, are ripe sociopaths themselves. Okay, so in the family setting, when you are the scapegoat, and you're dealing with a sociopath or a psychopath, they're gonna tell a lot of lies on you and make you look bad. They're gonna tell other people, that they'll make it seem like you're the sociopath. Okay, they manipulate and deceive and scheming, manipulation, deception, lies, backbiting, triangulation, gaslighting. All these things are being done. And so that's what happens in a family, and so everybody turns against you because, they make you out to be the crazy one. And it's like they're all, doing the same thing, and they all deep down, they know it's wrong. They know it's painful. But they are too plugged into the system, number one, to see consciously. And number two, it serves them, because whenever they get to hurt you in this way with gaslighting and with when they hurt you with gaslighting and with the manipulation and all the sociopathic tactics that they pull off, it serves them, because they get to be the good guys and make you the bad guys, while they're really the bad guys. Some of them are consciously bad. Some of them are ripe sociopaths, and they know they're doing horrible things and saying horrible things about you. But nobody knows. You see, when you're dealing with a full-blown sociopath, and they're oh God, it's so much to be said, and it's like I'm afraid to bring it up. I think another reason, there's another fear of me saying stuff, because I'm afraid to expose this family, you see. I'm afraid I'm gonna get caught. They're gonna catch me talking shit, and it's gonna be